Pets Who Thrive Radio with Tammy King.
Hello, I'm so glad you're joining us today. I have such a special guest in store for you guys. Dr. Michelle Broadhurst is here, and she has a business called Rehab for Pets. And Michelle, I really want you to tell the audience what you do, because we both practice in the same city. We just recently met, but I am so amazed at what she can do for animals, not only large ones, but small ones. And a lot of my clients actually go see her. So I hear a lot of really, really positive things about you. So please introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you, how you got started.
Thank you. Thanks, Tammy. So I'm from the deep south. I'm from South Africa. And so I have been in practice for more than 2 decades. I started out as a chiropractor and an acupuncturist, and then went into human sports medicine. And then about 20 years ago, I decided to go the animal route, which has been so rewarding and so wonderful. So I went to animal chiropractic school, and then I got my animal physical therapy or rehabilitation degree through the University of Tennessee when the Ark was being built. So I've been in the States for 8 years and happily in Texas for the last 4. And so we opened our new practice in Colleyville, which has been wonderful. So we do a multitude of different things, a lot of regenerative therapy, a lot of exercise therapy, working with the neuromuscular skeletal system in whatever way that fits the particular patient to get the best outcomes. So really higher quality of life, quicker return to function, increased strength and longevity. And that's really what we do. Yeah.
Wonderful. So for people who aren't super familiar with rehab for animals, walk us through what that might look like.
Sure. So we rehabilitate all kinds of animals, anything from neurological disease, which would be like disc issues where a dog has had an injured disc and now they're paralyzed, or they're weaker, or they're dragging a foot. They're not able to have as much strength as they did before, or they could even be completely down and have incontinence, not able to urinate and poop on their own. And we bring them back into getting their nervous system back online. Or we deal with a lot of old or geriatric dogs that are coming back from surgery. So we have everything from underwater treadmills where we can actually teach them to walk again, almost like a stroke patient, and teach them how to regate and use the water for buoyancy so that they're not putting all that pressure on their joints, so that we can build muscle and build strength. That's really important, and get their quality of life back using a multitude of different skills and modalities.
That's amazing. Yeah, I know. And I work with so many people too. And I hear so many people that come in and their dog may have had to have knee surgery, or their back they've got some sort of a degenerative disease where they can't, they've got some issues with their back feet and things like that. So that is such a wonderful thing that you do to really get them back into life, because that's really all what it's about, is to have them live their best life. So that's amazing. So do you work closely with veterinarians as you're through this process?
Yeah. So in the state of Texas, we need to have a veterinary referral, and that does a number of really good things. So one, it makes sure that it includes us in the team that you already have. So we're able to have communication with your veterinarian about what we think may be the best route forward. Because as a veterinarian, they do amazing things, but they have only so much in their toolbox. And what's the beauty about that is there's many cogs in the wheel. So we fill a gap that is not filled by traditional veterinary, because it's just not in their repertoire that they learn. This is a very subspeciality, and it takes quite a long time to learn as much as we need to know in order to perform all the different treatments that we do. So you're having your veterinarian on board. We do need a signed referral from them. And so we do work closely with them to try to make sure that we have pain control we're making sure we got pain control. We're making sure everybody's on the same page. So that's really important, because it's really about creating a massive village to treat this one patient.
Absolutely. Yes. Well, and you offer so many different services. Can you explain a little bit about each one of the things that you do? Because even when you and I talked, I was like, I've never even heard of that. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So can you give us a glimpse of that?
Sure. So, like I was saying, underwater treadmill is fantastic. We're able to kind of fill the water so that we can take up to 70 to 80% of the body weight off the dog. So we're able to teach them how to walk again if they're not able to gait. We're able to strengthen in the treadmill, change speeds, change endurance. We can go forwards and backwards. We use lots of bands. So that's a great tool to help them increase their strength and get them moving again. Obviously, chiropractic mobilizations is a big one. So making sure that the spinal cord is talking to itself and the brain as well as it possibly can. So making sure that all of the vertebrae and the joints are moving appropriately so we're getting the correct neural feedback. And that's super important because if the electricity isn't going, we don't have the lights going on. So sure. We do a lot of exercise therapy. And one of our biggest things is that we always have the client with us so that we can teach you what to do at home. Because I don't know about you, but I didn't go to the gym once and get a six-pack. So kind of disappointed about that. So so we teach people what to do at home with their dogs so that one, they don't have to come and see us so much. And two, they're able to get much bigger bounds as far as bigger gains by doing work every day with them than they would just coming to therapy once or potentially twice a week. And, there's a financial constraint to that too. So the more that people can do on their own, the more we encourage them to do, and we teach them the correct philosophies to do that. And then we have regenerative medicine in the way of extracorporeal magnetotransduction therapy, which is very, very new to the human world and even newer to the animal world. And this basically helps to get the electrical connection of the nervous system talking again. So it increases the cadence of the electrical transmissions of the nerves or decreases them accordingly so that we have a very clear path of that neurotransmission. Also helps with regenerative stuff, so increasing blood flow, stem cells, all the good cytokines and all the things that we need to have a promotion of healing. We do extracorporeal shockwave therapy a lot. That's wonderful for tendinopathies. So any tendons or ligaments that are really sore, we use it a lot for our post-surgical dogs as well, and cats actually. And cats do great with shockwave. They don't do great with everything, but they do really well with that. And that really increases stem cells, creates blood vessels from nothing, which is huge when we're looking at the healing capacity. And then we have Tecar therapy, which is the big brother of ultrasound, together with TENS, which helps to reduce pain. And then we've also got an EMS system, which helps to basically generate the synapses in the muscles. So it makes the muscles work without them actually having to do the work themselves. So we get everything working when it can't do it by itself. So it helps to regenerate those muscle tissues. Yeah, and then a bunch of other things, but those are the big ones.
Yeah, that is incredible. So what are some of the things that you find, like how do pets respond? Because it sounds like a lot of like things that they wouldn't be used to in their day-to-day life. How do you keep them calm and focused, I guess?
Well, we're all about bribery and corruption. That helps tremendously if they're food driven. So we try to keep them as busy, and one of our biggest focuses is making this a really happy place for them. So a lot of dogs really don't like going to the vet. The first time they go, they get stuck with a needle and that stays with them forever. So our first consultation is really about us hopefully falling in love with each other and creating a trust bond. So we do bribe and corrupt completely. We spend an awful lot on really good treats, and we use like really high quality stuff that they generally don't get. So that's helpful. But dogs most animals are very intuitive. So they might be a little fearful. That's one of the reasons we have the owner in the room too, is just to kind of calm them down, know it's a safe place. And so, they do really well. I think one of the beauties of our practice is we're able to really very quickly size up a dog and know what might be the appropriate treatments based on their temperament and their issue. And we start with the least invasive so that they have a really good experience. And so they want to come back and do more.
Yeah, that's wonderful. As a matter of fact, I have a customer, she comes to see you and it's on Wednesdays. And she just came in yesterday after she left you. She has a little border collie and a little poodle. Yes. And so she comes in and gets a lot of treats and everything. And she said she had just finished with a underwater treadmill. And I think she's like 15. I mean, she's amazing.
Yeah. And she's a real miracle dog that she's been through the gauntlet and come out the other side in many things. So she's an absolute gem.
Yes, she's awesome. So what are some of the things that you find that most excite you, I guess, about what you do every day?
I think when you're in human medicine, it's a lot easier than being in animal medicine because they can talk. I think for me, figuring out the puzzle of what's actually going on, because most of the time it's a little bit like a Rubik's Cube, right? It's not just one thing that's happening. For whatever reason, I tend to get some really, really difficult cases. And so it's about putting it all together. And I think that's where my background in functional medicine and sports medicine and chiropractic and acupuncture and all of that has really helped me because it puts all the pieces together. So we'll get a lot of dogs with a neurological component and an orthopedic component. And then we're trying to kind of figure out pain at the same time and diets and reducing inflammation and all of those sorts of things. So I think figuring out a plan, and when that plan, what was it? Hannibal always said, like, I love it when a plan comes together. And that's really the beauty, is like seeing these dogs come back from, potentially being put to sleep and find their feet again and get their strength and just like have that quality of life so that they can continue. It's just such a blessing.
Absolutely. It's like what feeds our soul. That's amazing.
Yeah. 100%.
And the thing about it too is animals don't talk like humans, so they can't tell you. So you have to be so intuitive. And that's the other thing I've heard a lot about you, is that like sometimes you'll look at a dog and you'll say, here's what's going, it brings a lot of comfort to the pet parents that, wow, you really are in tune with these guys.
Yeah. And I think if we bother to listen to them, they have a lot to say. It's just that we often come with our own agendas to the table, and it doesn't always work out, So if we actually do listen to what they're saying and honor that, I think that's a big part of that healing process.
Absolutely. So kind of going into my lane of nutrition, what do you find as far as nutrition and the role that it plays in the dog's ability to heal and continue to do well with rehab?
Yeah, I would say that food is probably a good 70 to 80% of getting them on the right track, truly. I am a very big fan of whole food and real food. So inflammation, here's an interesting little tidbit. So when you look at inflammatory bowel disease, which I think it's like 60% of humans have it. I would say dogs probably have a lot more because we're feeding them very synthetic diets. They're we basically putting them on Pringles and hoping for the best. When in the way of kibble. And when you're eating synthetic food and you eating super processed food, and God only knows what's in some of it, you're creating an inflammatory profile all the time. So systemic inflammation is everything. And if you cannot quell that systemic inflammation, in irritable bowel disease, in animals and in people, what's really interesting is you see the same we call these inflammatory mediators. So they're basically the things that float around and cause inflammation to uptick. Okay. So if you're looking at irritable bowel disease, which a lot of animals and people have, the same inflammatory mediators are found there as in osteoarthritis, the exact same ones. Wow. So there is a huge link. So if you're looking at like your interleukins, your 3s and 6s, your TNFAs, I'm throwing out some like fancy words here, but those are your mediators. You see the exact same ones in osteoarthritis as you do in irritable bowel disease, which means that there is a huge link between the microbiome and the degenerative processes that are going on in the body. When I started this 20 years ago, a lot of my patients would get to 17, 18. That is a huge rarity now because we've, back then, 2 decades ago, the dog was eating what you were eating and you weren't eating McDonald's every day. So, they were getting vegetables, they were getting meat, they were getting real food. And so they had a lot less issues.
Right.
I remember my mother stinking out the house with tripe. And our dogs lived forever, but it was truly, that was exactly it. So I think if we're looking at managing systemic inflammation, which is probably the most important thing we can do for our animals, nutrition has the pivotal role in all of that.
Absolutely. And, if they're eating species appropriate nutrition, then everything is going to be healing much quicker. They're not going to have all that. I mean, it's just amazing what food can do. And that's, a big part of what we speak at Bark Avenue is that, food is medicine and we need to treat it that way. So, and it sounds like that you see it every day.
And I'm a huge advocate for it. I always explain it this way, is that you have an inflammatory glass, right? And so if your inflammatory glass has just an eighth that's not filled, it takes nothing to overflow it. So a little bit of disease, the dog may have a little incident, and all of a sudden we have a massive pain response. And people are like, I don't know why this is happening, but it's because the body's been trying to keep this inflammation at bay for such a long time. If you can reduce that inflammatory glass to half full or even 3/4, you've got so much more wiggle room to play with. And those dogs will have so many more compensations and not manifest in these bouts of signs and symptoms that we're seeing.
Absolutely. What a great analogy. I like that.
Yeah.
What are you finding as far as, I think so many times we see dogs and it's very common, they're overweight. And what is your experience with that and how important, like lean body mass and all of that plays into this?
Absolutely pivotal, even more so now that we have genetically changed so many dogs. So if you look at our German Shepherds, we've completely changed their hind end, their angle of their femorotibial, so their knee to hip ratio. Let's not talk about bulldogs. They've got a multitude of issues.
Sure.
And so, you add a little bit of weight to that. And even if you're adding 5 to 10% above their ideal body weight, that is a lot of what we call concussion. So compression of those joints. They move less. So generally, anything that is obese or overweight moves less. So the harder it is to move, the less they're going to want to move. And which means that we're going to find muscles are going to degrade. So their muscle tone is not going to be as good. They're going to be carrying a lot more weight, which is going to put enormous amounts of stress on their musculoskeletal system, let alone their heart and their other bodily functions. So keeping your dog within an ideal kind of ratio is really important.
Absolutely. Yes. And there are charts on keeping your dog at an ideal weight. And it really helps to kind of see what those charts look like and what the waistline should look like. Obviously, they're too skinny and also you could go too far the other direction. But it is so important for our dogs to maintain a really healthy weight for so many reasons. It's just hard on their heart, their liver, their kidneys, musculoskeletal system, the whole thing. So, yeah. So tell me a little bit about some of the things that you find that are good for supplementing while a dog is going through rehab.
So it would really depend on what the dog's eating. So the better that they eat, the less supplements I find they need. Because if you have a balanced diet, and I think this is what people forget, is supplementation is exactly that. You're supplementing. So you're putting something in and not necessarily for a very long period of time. So you may be supplementing just for a short period of time because they have a deficit in a certain area. So we want to kind of figure out what that is, close the gap, and make it a better option, right? So I love collagen. Type 2 collagen is a big one. Really a big fan of alternative pain medications. So things like green lip mussel is wonderful. We still truly, if you look at the research, there is more empirical evidence towards your glucosamines, chondroitins, MSM bases. Some dogs really need it and do fantastically well. Others, there's not really a huge difference. So it certainly will never hurt. And it doesn't load kidneys and liver, so I'm never worried about it. So it's one of those, it's like vitamin C. Do you really need it? Well, I don't know. Go off and see if you get sick. But we don't really want to do that. So if we can kind of preempt that, Those things are really helpful. I'm a big believer in the B vitamins because B vitamins really help adrenals, helps in a multitude of different things on an autoimmune level so that the dogs can heal better. And there's a couple of pharmaceutical products I like. Adequan is one of them that I like that you can put back. The homeostatic products, things like Zeal, Traumeal, very, very helpful. Arnica, some homeopathics, Ruta, stuff like that is great. There's so much, honestly. And that's why I think it's so important to have someone like yourself who can really whittle it down to what should we try first. And my recommendations to people are often like, try one thing at a time for 10 days. Like, don't throw 10 things at them, because if one doesn't work, you're going to throw out the whole apple cart. So let's do stuff slowly, see how they progress, and take it from there. But, that's definitely more your realm than mine.
Yeah. So when you talk about some of the supplements that you like, how would you explain to where people would get those? Or like you said, B vitamins, are there certain Bs that you recommend over others, or?
When you're doing things like a lot of the acupuncture vets, they like injecting B12. And B12 is a great one because it can really kind of like boost you for a short period of time. And kind of give you that little bit of a lift. I think what's important is making sure that whatever you're giving is bioavailable. And I think that's the key. So with B vitamins and with any vitamins or supplements or herbs for that matter, I think what people need to understand is that they are not without consequence. So anything that we are putting in the body has to be processed through the liver and the kidney. So that requires a lot of strength, and it needs to filter. It needs to kind of work through. So a lot of people would be like, you can take anything you want. I'm not quite of that mindset, because I think there is a little bit of a cost for that, right? As far as like you loading the kidney and the liver. So making sure, and that's where I refer to people like yourself, where I'm like, speak to them and they can give you a whole plan, because I think there's a lot of adjustments that need to be done, and people want a drive-through solution, and nutrition. Yes. Nutrition and rehab are not drive-throughs. This is a sit-down 3-course Michelin restaurant.
Exactly.
And so we plan things out. We look how things go, how they respond. We tweak, we change accordingly. If at first you fail, try again. Like, that's really the reality. And I say to all my clients, like, at some point in this journey, we're probably going to screw it up. I'm going to screw it up, or you're going to screw it up, because you're going to do too much, or they're going to do something stupid. It's okay. We'll figure it out. Right. And that's why you get that relationship with someone like a nutritionist, like a rehab specialist, with your veterinarian, because it's a multitude of people working together for the best response.
Of course. Well, and the other thing too that I think is so important here is recognizing the life force of that particular animal. Because if you throw a ton of things at an animal who's maybe they're just not they just aren't thriving, that can really send them over the edge of not good. And so I think, like what you said, it's so important to start with one. Let's see how they respond. And then if we, find that they're, we're seeing some really good things, let's add this one, maybe, maybe not. But really whole food supplements is what we find to be like that green lip mussel.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I have found to work really well just with several of my own dogs, and I don't know where what your opinion is on it, is the myostatin. It especially for my older dogs that have seemed to kind of lose some muscle mass, it really seems to give them a little bit more stability.
Yeah. And it's one of those too that like some have done amazingly well. Like it's just hit that spot and they've just kind of skyrocketed.
Right.
Others, I think sometimes you're a little too late, or it's just not the effective, because it's an egg based.
Exactly.
So I think that also comes down to preference, what proteins the dog does well with, all of that. Like there's so many different things, but yes, as a product, I think it's a great product. it's just, I think what people need to really realize is that, again, it's all about tweaking and figuring out the formula for them. Like,
exactly.
there is fantastic products. There's so many products on the market that it actually gets overwhelming. And then, so that's really what it's about, is figuring out exactly what is the perfect formula.
Sure. Yeah. What are your thoughts on CBD as pets are going through rehab?
I like it a lot.
Okay.
I think it's a great alternative. I think people don't really understand the endocannabinoid system effectively. So one of the things that I learned a long time ago, because I was privileged to use this for many, many, many decades, actually, because South Africa had interesting gray areas. And so what people need to understand about endocannabinoids is that there isn't a prescription. So I have a dog that weighs 90 pounds who sees me, and if she takes one drop of a 1,000 milligram bottle, so one drop,
wow,
she's out for 2 days.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, she's that sensitive. And then, you have a Chihuahua who weighs 9 pounds and takes 27 milligrams 3 times a day and is still like, let's go.
That's my Frenchie. Yes.
Yes. So I think what people need to realize is there isn't a prescription. And a lot of these companies put a prescription on the bottle, which is a little bit misleading, not on purpose, but really because you have to find their crisis dose. So when you find a crisis dose, what that means is you want to have them on a beach in Mexico after 8 beers. And that's like the dose that's going to bring them back from like fear. So if fireworks are going, if they've had a massive shock, if they're in incredible amounts of pain, that's the dose you want to record. And then your medicinal dose is about 70% of that crisis dose, because a lot of people will say CBD doesn't work for their dog, but it's probably because they're actually just giving too little. So they're just making expensive pee. So you need to figure out what the medicinal dose is. And the only way to really figure that out is to figure out that crisis dose and work a little bit backwards. Yeah. So I think it's incredibly effective. I don't think that God makes mistakes. So I think most of the beautiful plants and things that are put on this planet are put there to help his creatures, us included. So if we know how to use it effectively and responsibly, I think it's a fantastic tool.
Absolutely. No, I love that analogy. That's very good. And something that, yes, I think a lot of people will take from that. And that is the truth. So many people are like, oh, yeah, we tried that for this storm and nothing, And again, you're right. It's so individualized. I have 2 Borbals, by the way. And one of them is 150 pounds. And I can give her, like you said, just a quarter of a dropper. She is snoring like loud in the house. My Frenchie, I could give 2 dropperfuls and he's still running around like crazy. Yeah. So it speaks to that, and how individualized it is. So I think that's really important. So I know you've had a jillion success stories, but is there one in particular that you'd like to share today for the audience?
I'm so blessed. I have so many. We deal a lot with neurological dogs. So dogs that come in where they've had either like spinal strokes or they've had intervertebral disc diseases and they're completely paralyzed. And they are, actually, I'll give you an example of one that's coming in on Monday. So little Millie on Christmas Eve got stood on and blew out discs in her spine. Oh. She's a little Yorkie that's full of sass. And so she was paralyzed. She couldn't walk at all. She was incontinent. She couldn't pee by herself. She couldn't poop by herself. And so Millie came in and they didn't do surgery. And so within 6 treatments, we had Millie walking like a champion. So we did a combination of like some manual therapy, like very low grade manual therapy, just kind of traction type stuff that her parents were doing at home. We used the EMTT extensively. So that's the extracorporeal magnetotransduction therapy. We did some Tecar therapy with her to reduce the bruising and get the blood flow back into her spinal cord. Her parents were amazing at the exercises and doing the neuroregenerative stuff with her, put her in the treadmill, got her moving again. And truly, like after 6 sessions, I was like, okay, see you. And they were like, can we see you in a month, which is tomorrow? And I was like, yeah, let me know if anything goes south. And Millie, last time I saw her, she literally ran in here like a bat out of hell.
Oh,
And yeah, so I mean, unfortunately, what we're getting a lot of is surgeons and specialists are really good at what they do. They truly don't know very much after the initial insult. So when, you go, and we work with the specialist centers, they refer to us a lot. And so, they often tell patients where you are after like 4 weeks or 8 weeks is where you're going to be. And if you look at the research, that's really not true. We see gains in these neurological dogs up to 2 years, like 24 months, we're still seeing changes. And particularly those spinal strokes, like I've got one at the moment. She had a cervical spinal stroke. So basically, wherever you have an impingement in your spinal cord, from that point backwards, there's no connectivity to the spinal cord.
wow.
So we've had actually, we've got 2 at the moment that are cervical discs. And so they were completely paralyzed. They had no control over any functions. And they're all walking.
Wow.
After doing a multitude of different things. Again, great owners. They listen. They work the program. They're patient. Neurology takes time. Orthopedics is super easy. If you break a bone, I can tell you exactly what's going to happen at every 3 days. And it's pretty dinkum, like easy. But when it comes to neurological stuff, or this is a great one for you. We had a little Yorkie, another Yorkie. They love to jump, so they like to break things. So I'm sure they would. So little Gus came in, and he had had 2 surgeries for a fractured radius and ulna, which is the front bone of the arm. And they had taken the plates out because he wasn't doing well, and he never used the leg, and he hadn't used the leg in 6 months. Wow. And so they were going to amputate the leg. Which for a young Yorkie is not a great option for the rest of their life, even though he could probably handle it. So we did extracorporeal shockwave, which one of the bonus things about shockwave is that it actually heals non-union fractures. So when you have a fracture that isn't healing, it actually causes bone deposition in that area, that if you know how to use the shockwave right. And so we have x-rays of Gus having complete fractures where all the screws and the plates were in his arm, to them being completely healed. He runs around like a bat out of hell.
Good.
And that happened within 3 months. Yeah.
We got him
a little, we did the smallest brace I've ever done, a custom brace for his little front leg. And I think it was the smallest that the company's ever done. And he is brace free. He runs around. He's fabulous. He walks 2 miles a day. So, those are the things. That's a big win.
That's amazing. I love that. And so back to what you were saying about, when dogs become paralyzed, or, really their quality of life is suffering at the moment. I think it's easy for many vets, because they don't know any other solution, to say, I think it's probably best if you put them down. And of course, we always want what's best for our animals, and we don't want them to suffer. But it's so refreshing to know that there are other options. We don't have to just say, oh, he's not going to be able to walk ever again. Let's at least do everything we can to give him that opportunity. And I think that's so amazing that you do the work that you do.
Yeah. And it's so hard to hear when people say to you, oh, if I'd known about you 2 years ago for my other dog, and that's really what we're trying to work on, is trying to figure out, within our veterinary umbrella, I think everybody has their role. And and that's why I was so grateful to meet you, because I think finding your tribe is really important. I say, I've been doing this for a long time. I know what I know. I'm good at what I do, but I don't do everything else. And so I need other people to fill those gaps, so that we can really have the highest quality of life for these dogs.
Sure.
My dad always used to say dog is God spelled backwards, because
exactly
they are the closest thing that you're ever going to get to unconditional love. So we need to do better. We need to do better for these babies and stand up for them when nobody else does.
Absolutely. That's amazing. So if someone is listening to this and they're saying, oh my gosh, this sounds like exactly what I want, how do they find you? Where do they go to get more information?
Super easy. If you go to our website, it's rehab4pets.com. Or you'll get all our contact numbers and information up there. There are also referral forms you can download online that your vet can even fill in online, and new patient forms. So everything that you would need to make an appointment is all there. Pricing, all of that kind of stuff. We're on social media. So if you look us up on Facebook or Instagram, you'll see what we do in the practice, and you'll see lots of puppies in the treadmill and doing crazy wild gymnastics. So yeah, we're in Colleyville, so we are literally 1 mile from Park Avenue, which makes it very convenient. So yeah, if you have any questions, you can reach out to us at info@rehab4pets.com, or go to the website and you can fill in a form on there, and we will get right back with you.
And even if you're not near Colleyville, even if you're in another state, it's worth it. It's worth it if, you really want to see a turnaround in your dog. So that's amazing. Well, Dr. Broadhurst, thank you so much for all of your amazing wealth of knowledge that you've given the listeners today. This has been such a treat. Is there anything else that you would like to leave the audience with?
I think, if I can encourage all of you, we are in a very interesting time in the world and in veterinary. Don't be scared to advocate for your pups. There is a lot of push right now. There is, we're kind of getting functional medicine coming in more, which is amazing. Holistic medicine, food, all of that. Don't be shy to advocate for your dogs. We're seeing a change in the profiles of vaccines. There's a couple of medications on the market that are new, which we're seeing quite a few side effects with. Don't go blindly. Their entire fate is in your hands. Don't be scared to go, you know what? Thank you for that recommendation. I'm going to go read up on that. And, if that means that you call out to one of us, if we're in your tribe, great. We will give you the best, most objective information that we possibly can, so you can make good choices for your animal. But educate yourself and create a tribe around you that you can pull information from. And don't be scared to advocate, because nothing's going to happen to you in most cases, unless it's an emergency, if you just wait one more day.
So true. Such great advice. That's amazing. Well, thank you again. This has been amazing. And
thank you.
Yes, I'm excited. We've connected, and I think it's going to just help both of us so much. So I love it.
Awesome.
Thanks again. We'll talk to you soon.
Pets Who Thrive Radio with Tammy King.